To help me solution on the spot is Brian Vinson, client success leader at Resultant. Hey, Brian.
What's up?
How are you?
Good. This is going to be fun.
So I have labeled you a thought leader, and we're going to talk about our scenario. A little teaser here will be about cloud migrations. For people who don't know you, why would you be considered an expert in a cloud migration?
Okay, great question. So as a client success lead at Resultant, I work with a lot of different clients and help them with a lot of different problems that they have to find those solutions. And so the thing that's like really hot right now with data is, especially with the pandemic, is how do I have access to my data? Like we have all these crazy on-premises systems where we have these 12 separate systems in the cloud, and I have to pull 12 reports and like munge them all together to get the actual report that I want. How do we do that? And so over the last 6.5 years, I've done a ton of cloud migrations, getting people access to their data in the cloud so they can access it from anywhere safely, securely.
When we say cloud migration, for people who maybe don't even know or they're not familiar with what that is, can you just explain a little bit of Cloud Migration 101?
Yeah, so there's Cumulus, Nimbus. No, those are types of clouds that aren't. That's more weather related. So when we talk about the cloud, this is good because my mom always is asking me like, hey, is that in the cloud? And so having to talk to my mom about what the cloud is has helped me like for this very moment. So what is the cloud? So a lot of times organizations have a really big infrastructure team. They have their own data centers and they have their own servers where they have to keep people on staff to keep the server farms running. They have to keep things patched, and they have to keep the maintenance up to date, and they have to do the upgrades. And so you have to have this entire workforce that is like specific to infrastructure, even if your organization is a baseball team, or even if your organization is a hospital. And so when you move data to the cloud, you're able to leverage infrastructure that Amazon or Microsoft or Google or Oracle have built specifically so that you don't have to worry about patches and maintenance and all that sort of stuff. It's hosted for you. They take care of the security. They pay people way more to handle security than you could pay on your own side of things. So leveraging these large clouds that have been built by Google and Amazon and Microsoft and Oracle really allow you to take off and allow you to hire the people that can do the analysis instead of spending a ton of money on staff that manage your servers.
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably a good place to greet our solution on the spot. So if I kind of hit you with our scenario, you ready to play?
Certainly.
Okay. So let's play off mom, which is always a great discussion over Thanksgiving or Christmas, is like, what do you do for a living and data, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Stuff with computers.
Or dad. But yeah, stuff with computers. And so let's say that we have maybe a new CEO at a mid-level, mid-enterprise level client, and they ask us to come in together and talk to them about, my IT person is really passionate about the cloud. We don't have it. We don't use it. How important is this really to me? So maybe they're not really high data literate CEO, but they understand enough, like they're excellent at running a business. They've never been the IT guy or gal. And we get this opportunity to walk in and help them evaluate, do they really need to take that step? And if so, how do we help them prepare for what that looks like, feels like, cost, et cetera? Does that sound okay?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a client that we already know and take care of and have a relationship with, we've probably been doing work with them before, and we don't need to do like a strategic data assessment to understand all the different places their data resides. If they aren't a current client, that's probably where we would start, is like, what do you have? Because you can tell us what you have, but until we talk to HR and operations and finance and all the teams, delivery, marketing, sales, everyone, they're going to have a bunch of data that your IT people don't necessarily know about. I think the technical term for that is shadow IT. Mm-hmm. So if we're working with someone that we already know really well, we would say, hey, let's start with the pilot. Let's take a subject area or a set of reports that you run all the time We will help you move the data for that to the cloud. We'll help you connections to those data sources for your reports or your visual analytics like Tableau or Power BI. We'll help you move that to point at this new cloud solution. And so we'll do a pilot. It takes 6 to 9 weeks, and we will show you that to build a data warehouse or to migrate to the cloud, it doesn't have to take a year. You don't have to boil the ocean. We will take an iterative approach and start small and build from there. And after 9 weeks, you'll have one set ready to go. Your infrastructure in the cloud will be ready to go. And then we'll just iterate on that. And so in 6 week increments, you can have a lot of stuff together really, really fast.
Well, and let me ask you this too. A lot of the elements of getting to the cloud do really, or the approach we take does seem to depend on what they do have. And so if you're using
Certainly.
QuickBooks Online, that's a different scenario than if you're using something on an app, on your infrastructure, right? And so that assessment, if we don't already have it, is pretty pivotal before we can go tell you what the rest of the experience may look or feel like. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you might, like you said, you might already use something like QuickBooks Online or other web applications that are already in the cloud. And so you don't need to bring that data down just to send it back up. So there are other ways we can get to that data and pull it into your virtual private network that's up on the cloud. So one of the other huge benefits that I didn't talk about yet, the cloud is infinitely scalable, right? So if you have on-prem or on-premises servers, like whatever you bought is what you have. And so if you need to upgrade those, if you need to add more RAM or more compute or whatever, like you got to upgrade that machine, and it's a capital expense. So do you want, like, if you're in the budget side of things, do you want all this to go against your capital expenses, or would you like to do like op expenses? And so being in the cloud moves you to operational expenses and allows you to scale things up without having to invest in more hardware also. That's the other really huge benefit of the cloud.
That is exactly where I was headed next. It's a change in like paradigms, right? Where you're used to
Yep.
maybe buying new hardware, or your IT person comes to you every 5 to 7 years and says, "Oh, we need new stuff. It's going out of warranty, whatever." And if you make the switch, there's more about ramp up, ramp down. The amount of consumption in the cloud is what you're paying. So that those subscription fees may change month over month depending on how much capacity you're using in the cloud. But that's
Yes.
very different than every 5 to 7 years you got to go spend, a whole chunk of change on, a new hardware. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah. And one of the other benefits of that is it then opens you up to all these possibilities of other tools that you can use, like as a monthly subscription, instead of having to like pay an annual subscription and, have this license. Like if you like it, keep using it. If you don't like it, turn it off. You don't have to worry about like these large expenses anymore.
So maybe the CEO is excited that, at the idea of pivoting to subscription or capacity based consumption costs. But like, is there a big giant check on the front end of that to do the implementation? Like, what's it cost to get them there? And do they need a big check up front or some cash up front to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that it usually works is the tools that we use in the cloud for like extracting and loading data or transforming data. It's usually around like the extract and load that you'll see, or the ingress and egress is the technical term for it, where you start to see a lot of charges. But there are tools that we use like Snowflake. It's the best in class data warehouse in the cloud that they don't care how much data you push in or pull out. They don't charge that way. They charge based on how much you store, which at this time in like December of 2022 is like $20 a month per terabyte. But then they do charge, like you were talking about, for the compute. And so if you have a process that runs and it's going to run for 5 minutes, well, if you were to add more compute to that, you could get that 5 minute process to run maybe in 20 seconds. And so it's scalable, like we were talking about, but that also like boils down to the number of credits and the amount of money you're going to spend. it might cost you the same amount to do it in 5 minutes as it costs to do it in 20 seconds, but you get it like way faster.
Well, and you'll have to sort of interject here with more lived experience than me, but what I've noticed when I've seen clients go through this pivot to cloud migrations is their behavior changes, and it shifts from how do we support our infrastructure that's on-prem or maybe in one data center to how do we leverage our data more effectively or leverage our cloud consumption more effectively. How do we get more out of less? And so there's sort of efficiencies of scale I've observed where it doesn't mean you're walking a bunch of people that were running your infrastructure out the door, but could we leverage them in ways to build out some more data analytics or to better understand our infrastructure or to assess what we really need to be paying for consumption costs around? And then, hey, as we future roadmap what our needs are as a business, how do we leverage our cloud infrastructure to spin something up and try it? And we can get more agile to say, let's spin up a 6-week iteration where we have a hypothesis that if we do X, it'll yield Y. And if it doesn't work, we just turn it all off and the consumption goes down. And
That's right.
it's just easier to play with our business is observationally what I've noticed. That sounds right to you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there is a double-edged sword when it does come to the cloud. And so like watching those costs and managing those costs, all the tools give you a way to limit like you hurting yourself, like accidentally having something that continues to run and you get like a $20,000 bill. Like that would probably be no point. But being able to add limits and that sort of stuff, keep an eye on it. But the cloud also offers you the opportunity to leverage those resources better. And so one of the things that you'll find is the more near real time your data is, or that you want your data, the more that's going to cost you. And so with the cloud, you can do that. You can stream data through, you can do all these things, but you don't have to, and you can still use the cloud. And so we have lots of clients that love the cloud because they have one place to go get their data from, like one source to go get their data for all their business users. But that doesn't mean that necessarily they need that to be up to date all the time. So if you're a Tableau user, for example, maybe you just deliver that extract. It's refreshed once a day instead of every 15 minutes or a live connection. So you're still able to leverage the cloud for what it is, but you're also helping monitor and manage any consumption costs. So there are ways to use the cloud without it costing.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. One of the painful things I've experienced, though, is if a client isn't prepared organizationally for after we've gotten to the cloud migration, like how to leverage the product in a meaningful way. So some of the, to me, it's like a foundation, and we've built a new foundation they can build on, and they can do a bunch of fancy stuff with it. But do you have any recommendations for clients if you're thinking about taking on a cloud migration organizationally? Here are some recommendations from subject matter expert Brian.
Yeah. So again, like when we know the client and we worked with the client, we can help them with the entire solution. If we don't know the client and we've gone through a strategic data assessment with them, like I talked about earlier, one of the things we talk about is the maturity model of your data analytics. And so part of that is, what are you going to do with this data as you move along the path in this cloud migration? Do you need to be in a spot where you can do advanced analytics and data science? Like, is that something that you're interested in doing? Do you have data governance set up? Do you know what metrics are important to you and how they're defined? Like, we can help you set that up. Do you need help with organizational change management? Is this going to be a big deal for your entire organization? We can help you with that. And so when we say cloud migration, yes, there is a thing that we're doing, but we like to look at things holistically as an organization and help our other teams with all the other pieces instead of just the one thing that's on the docket. So we like to think about things as a whole.
Awesome. And what you didn't say so far today, and I want the opportunity to clarify this because I have seen a lot of clients misunderstand this. We are not saying that the cloud is always cheaper than on-prem. We are saying there are different ways to look at the budget. There are different ways that you pay for it, different values. But I've had a lot of clients who just sort of assume that it's cheaper. And I think we're not saying every single time depending,
No,
it depends on how you manage it and how you use it. Is that fair?
absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. So, yeah, it's not necessarily cheaper. And more than likely, depending on what side of the budget it comes from, it may look like it's costing you more. But the efficiencies and effectiveness that you'll gain from moving to the cloud, I think that you would see a great return on investment. And we'd love to talk to you about it and see what kind of return on investment we can get for you. Yeah, we want the data to make sense. And we want the solutions that we have to have really good outcomes.
Yeah. Is there anything I haven't mentioned or asked that you would make sure you also mentioned to this CEO before we walk out the door?
We like to look at things holistically, and we like to be consultative. We are different than the big four. We are a little more boutique, and we really do like to be relational with the way we do consulting. We don't want to take your watch and tell you what time it is. We want to be invested with you and help you along the way, because my favorite thing to do is like for a board to go back to the CEO and go, yeah, you guys made the right call by doing this project. Or for the VPs that I work with to go, hey, I got the SVP role because you guys helped me do this. We love it. We love to make our clients the heroes, and would love to, yeah, to help anyone with their cloud solution.
Awesome. Well, your passion is coming through. And so I think you did a great job with the CEO. I think they want to buy and talk more about a cloud or maybe evaluate their value props for it. So nice job on Solution on the Spot, Brian. Appreciate you joining me for it today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.